Yeah, apologies to Berserker, but we're definitely not sticking to the script today. So join that Discord. But first one I'll kick us off with is the college hoops related one, and it's about Big Ten breakouts. So I want to hear who y'all think are the biggest shots to emerge this season, become big time contributors for their respective teams. And I have a couple parameters, and it's this: you can't pick any freshmen. Seems probably pretty obvious. And they also had to average less than 10 points per game last season. So if you need to look anything up and make sure, feel free to do that. But I want to hear your breakouts. I wrote the top 25 breakouts for the Almanac, which is why I've been thinking about this in particular. But yeah, I'll pass it to y'all.
Can you tell us how many guys from the top 25 were Big Ten on your list for the Almanac?
As of right now, 3, but I might add a 4th.
Okay.
I think Greg should go because he has a lot of breakout candidates on his team.
So my initial thought was the guy I've been gassing up all offseason, but I just looked it up and he averaged more than 10 points a game. It was Bruce Thornton. He averaged 10.6 points a game, which I'm shocked he eclipsed 10 points. He must have had a great final 2 weeks of the season to get there. It's homery if I start with Michigan, but the only one I'm really confident, I think Doug McDaniel's a lock to really up his production this year. And I am buying Doug. I think I've downplayed Michigan in a pretty significant way because I'm an honest fan and there's not a lot to love as far as this team being super competitive and competing for championships, which should be Michigan's goal. That's not the goal this year. They have no realistic world where they're going to be a championship level team in the Big Ten. But that doesn't mean there's not stuff to like, and Doug is the biggest reason for me. Even among the Kamwa and Terrace Reed hype that's come and gone a little bit, I think Doug is the highest ceiling guy on this team. He averaged 9, 3, and 3 last year. Everybody remembers what happened. He was thrown into the fire, essentially. For the first 2 weeks of the season, he looked like a really erratic backup point guard. And that's kind of the love and hate give and take game of Doug McDaniel as a player. Like, he is a boom or bust, swing for the fences guy. When it works, he's electric and really fun and highlight plays. When it doesn't work, he looks like a train going off the tracks. And when he was a backup point guard, that was difficult because he only played like 8 minutes a game behind Llewellyn for the first 2 weeks. And all you wanted from those 8 minutes from him was like, don't drive off the tracks. Like, just don't turn the ball over erratically. And he couldn't do it. He was kind of crazy. So when Llewellyn went down, it was like, this team's so screwed. He's going to just drive this season totally into the dirt. And it didn't really happen. And I think he deserves more credit for that. Like, yeah, the season was horrible, but it wasn't Doug's fault. Like, it wasn't like, oh, Doug McDaniel's the reason this team stinks. It was more that they didn't have a power forward and that Jet Howard didn't guard anybody ever. So I'm optimistic. I think Doug made really good strides. Like, the second half of the season, he was a totally different player. I reference it a lot because it's fun to poke fun at Carter, but I thought he was the best guard in a game against Michigan State's guards. As a true freshman, that means a lot to me. I think there's a world where
the second game when he drank water, right?
The second game where he was hydrated, correct. Obviously, it's very important when you are the size of a Jonas brother, you need to drink water. And Doug, to me, could score 15 points a game this year. I think his scoring upside is that for real if Michigan wants them to. So I'll stop there. I think it's lame I went with one of my favorite team's players, but that's the first name that I knew was under 10 points a game that comes to mind.
Okay. I'm going to go with the first player that came to my mind that I feel good about breaking out, and that's Derek Simpson from Rutgers. I think that he has the ability to be that, let's say safely 12 to 15 a game scorer in the Big Ten. I think he has that type of ability. I think he was hindered more than I thought by playing next to Mulcahy and McConnell. I thought that it would more so help him, at least playing next to Mulcahy. But I think he's ready for a bigger role. I like the way that Rutgers team fits this year. So I think fit also helps in the guys breaking out. Like, if guys can come into a situation where they are in a good situation with who are around them, I think it'll help enhance their game. So, oh shit, I almost knocked over my desk. But yeah, I think Derek Simpson has a really good chance to have a breakout year. He averaged like 7 last year, but had some really good games towards the end of the season. And also, me and Greg saw firsthand at the Big Ten tournament, he's a guy who can score the ball.
For sure. Riley, do you have a name here?
Yeah, well, I want to say I love the Simpson pick. I actually forgot about him. He's on my list of 25, so I have 4 and I might add a 5th. But yeah, I think he's really dynamic on the ball. That's kind of the hope for Rutgers, in my opinion, that he really can emerge as that second option next to Morier if they want to get to the tournament. But for me, in some ways, it might seem a little obvious because it's a former top 10 prospect, but I'm going with Khalil Ware as my top choice. He's highest in my personal rankings. And I feel like there have been some detractors on Ware this offseason who have maybe like tried to slow the hype a little bit because he was pretty disappointing down the stretch down the stretch at Oregon. And I know there were concerns about his motor, but even looking at his flashes, man, like he's not just some rim runner prototype who's only going to make an impact if he's catching lobs and blocking shots. Like he has legitimate post moves. And I know that's not exactly modern basketball. And we've talked some about the death of the Big Ten center, but I think that can still be really valuable in the league. And, say what you want about Mike Woodson. I know he probably still has some things to prove. I would guess IU fans feel the same. And I know he's been the subject of naps and things of that nature on the show before. But the man knows how to feature a post player. I think he knows how to get the best out of bigs. And even looking at some of the strides that TJD made defensively over the last 2 years, I think that bodes really well for Ware to be a difference maker on that end. And in my opinion, the only thing that can slow him down is if they try to shoehorn a fit with Malik Renew and that doesn't work out for some reason, or if they're really trying to go Mbako, Renew, and Ware with their 3, 4, and 5, that could get a little clunky. But if they do a little, if they let Renew maybe get a few minutes next to Ware and then come in when he's off the bench, I think that could work really well for his long-term potential.
I like that. I agree. Can we get the other 3 names on your list?
Yeah, first I want to talk about Roddy Gale too, because I think Roddy Gale is going to be a problem this year. That man is dumb athletic. I think, again, if you look at his build and even his stats, you might just think he's going to be a shooter. But I don't know if y'all saw this highlight. It's literally the first thing that pops up if you search Roddy Gale on Twitter. But the man threw down like a double clutch dunk on Iowa last year.
Baseline dunk?
Yes, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
And even his high school tapes are full of they're full of windmill dunks and stuff. So like I'm really high on Roddy Gale. And even, again, I know Ohio State has gotten a lot of positive buzz from y'all, and I'm in on that too. But I think that bodes really well for Tyson Chapman and Scotty Middleton too, that like Chris Holtman just finds these 4-star kids and they end up becoming pros. So, and then the next 2 were Terrace Reed, and I mentioned Derek Simpson. I might swap out Terrace Reed for Doug. I know, Greg, initially you told me you liked Terrace as a better breakout, but maybe you've changed a little bit. But I think, definitely see how Doug has a better chance to put up numbers. And then I might throw Dane Danger on there just because I didn't realize he was under 10 points per game last year. He was at 9.5.
So I was going to save this for the end of this, but I'm glad you brought up Danger in Illinois. I have a different Illinois name that I'm going to call a breakout candidate, and you guys might laugh me off of the show. I'm putting Coleman Hawkins on this list. He was
on it last year, man. He's done. I'm done with Coleman.
He scored 9.9 points a game last year. And I think I'm carrying the Coleman flag right now. When I did my Big Ten top 25 players list, I had Coleman, I think, 7th in the conference. And a bunch of people were like, that's absurd. Look, there's not many guys in the country, let alone in the Big Ten, that can put up a triple-double in a game. Coleman can do that. He just has never done it consistently. And I don't know if he will or not, but again, last year's team, it's about role stuff. Last year's team, he played a big role, but that team wanted Matthew Meyer to shoot 20 shots a game. That team wanted Terrence Shannon to be the point guard and go downhill most of the game after they realized point guard was a disaster. So like this year's team, as much as we talk about the role guys for Illinois and how deep they are, this year's team's going to need Coleman to kind of be an alpha. And I think that's the first time in his career that's going to happen. And there's going to be some really messy moments with that. But like, it's not like Ty Rodgers or Sincere Harris are going to score 12 points a game this year. Somebody has to score for Illinois. And I think Coleman, with a scoring mentality, can take a really large leap because the talent's always been there. It's just been like the question on why is he shooting from half court with 20 seconds on the shot clock, and just why can't he do this every game? So, Car, you're a Coleman guy. Is that crazy to include Coleman Hawkins on this list?
I don't think so at all, because I think the ability is there. And whether, I think you see the duality of where people are at on Coleman Hawkins. They think like Riley, not saying he's like out on him, but he's like, okay, Coleman's been there for so long and people have been waiting for the breakout. It hasn't happened. I'm more so leaning towards the side of, we've been waiting for the breakout so long that I would bet on him not ending his career, not breaking out, not being the guy where like, oh, he was the folklore. We thought he was going to break out eventually. I think this year he has the chance to finally put it together and actually have his breakout season. So I don't know. He has a lot of ability. I don't think you can deny that.
I don't think we talked Riley into putting Coleman on his list, but we tried.
No, like I want to say when I said I'm done with Coleman, I don't mean I'm out on him by any stretch. He's actually someone I've been a fan since I watched his tape at Prolific Prep. I was crunching the high school film, but I just think he's been predicted as a breakout star like the last 2 seasons, and he was a top 10. He was top 10 on my list last year, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not going down that road again. I think it's more realistic that that's just kind of who he is he'll get you his 8 to 9 points. He'll get you 5-6 rebounds, and he'll throw in a couple assists, and he'll make some smart plays. But I don't see it, especially with like Terrence Shannon being back. And just, I mean, I think the more realistic option is Terrence Shannon's probably taking 15 shots a game, and maybe you see more opportunities for Luke Goody, or maybe that goes to Danger. But, you know, even with Danger, if I throw him on the list, he might be low 20s just because he's getting a little up there in age too. And I know this has been a topic on y'all show before, but Illinois might not want him to get Kofi Coburn type usage, which I somewhat understand, although like the flashes of danger, I think, are real, man. I think like he seems like he's able to take his man to the post, fake like he's going right, turn the other direction, hit a little reverse layup at will. And at least in high school, he kind of had a bag. I don't know if he's displayed it a ton at Illinois, but he has a decent handle for a big.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I agree. I have one more name to throw at you guys, and this one, I don't know, maybe he's too good to be considered a breakout candidate, but
Ty Rodgers.
No, not Ty Rodgers. There were 5 all freshman team members, obviously. 5 guys. 3 of them are in the NBA now from last year. Hood Schifino, Jet Howard, Bryce Sensabaugh. The other 2 are back. One of them's Connor Essegian. He scored 12 points a game. He doesn't qualify. The other one does qualify. Cart, it's Purdue's point guard. Braden Smith, 9.7 points per game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. I'm just going to flat out say, I don't know if we can consider him breakout or not, because he was really good and he was a starter already last year. With that said, I think Braden Smith's going to be a monster stat guy this year. Like, I think first team all Big Ten is in the cards. I think like 13, 6, and 6 is kind of my baseline for what I'm expecting from him. He's another guy. I mentioned the Coleman. He's another triple-double threat every time he steps on the floor. And from what I saw from their overseas trip, yes, they were playing like Carter's men's league opponents, but he was like ball on a string, the driver of everything in a way he wasn't last year, and I'm really buying it.
I love that pick, and I might actually give him a spot. Someone like getting kicked off.
Small question before we move on to the next topic. Are you guys round up people? Like, if someone averages 9.5, I consider them a 10-point a game scorer.
No, I'm not.
I'm a round down because Riley Kugel, terrible name, great player, is number 2 on my list, and he averaged 9.9 points per game last year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Card, I'm a big make the numbers work for whatever you're arguing guy.
That's true. I guess that's what I do too.
Yeah. You can cut up numbers however you want. That's the number one skill set I have. Riley, let's move on.
As long as they fit your agenda.
What else do we have today, Riley?